Mario, Link, Sonic. All of these characters are some of the most iconic characters from all of video games. When you think of video games, at least one of them comes to mind. But there's always been this other one. This one that's been hanging around in the background. I mean, yeah, this guy's one of Nintendo's biggest characters, but he's not as big as most of them. And that guy is Kirby, a legendary video game character that you've heard of. But have you ever actually played any of his games? I mean, of course you've heard of Kirby. Everyone's heard of Kirby. But compared to anyone else, he's just not as popular. So I decided to go all the way back to the very first game on the Game Boy to try and discover where this big pink guy came from, and how Kirby changed everything. It's an interesting story. So hi, I'm Charlie, I'm back, and let's discover how Kirby changed everything. Masahiro Sakurai, the man, the myth, the legend. Most known now for being the director on all of the games in the Super Smash Bros. Series, he actually got his work started at a little company known as HAL Laboratory. HAL started in February 1980 and began their work developing games for a lot of Japanese home computers before eventually getting in a relationship with Nintendo. With Nintendo, HAL developed games like Pinball, a game that ended up being a launch title for the NES in North America that stars Mario who has to save Pauline, along with Golf, a game that was only programmed by one guy, Satoru Iwata. They also made other games like F1 Race, Mark Rider, Balloon Fight, Lot Lot, Othello, and more. HAL Labs was doing quite a lot of stuff. At the same time, Masahiro Sakurai was growing up and eventually landed a job at HAL Laboratory and was set to direct his very first game at age 19. Now at first, this game was a simple platformer with a little ball guy. And this little ball guy was invented just to be a temporary character before they actually made the character that they wanted to make. But then the developers kind of just fell in love with it. How could you not like that thing? His name was supposed to be called Popopo. No idea why the hell he was called Popopo, but whatever. The actual game was also supposed to be called Popopo of the Spring Breeze, before later being changed to Twinkle Popo. But this name was kinda stupid and Nintendo knew this. Now, Popopo of the Spring Breeze was never actually supposed to be published by Nintendo, but it didn't seem like anyone actually wanted the game, as no orders came in to purchase the game to sell. So the game ended up being delayed, and HAL asked Nintendo to publish the game. And of course, Nintendo accepted. At first, Nintendo didn't know what the color of this main guy was supposed to be. Shigeru Miyamoto thought he was meant to be orange or something, due to the fact that this game was made for the Game Boy, so there was no color. But it was actually developed on a twin Famicom, so maybe there was color and they were just dumb. I don't know. The only real thing Nintendo suggested is that they change the name of the little guy. I mean, who wants to call him Popopo? It's so close to another game that was developed by HAL, The Adventures of Lolo. I can't wait for Lolo and Popopo to team up. Nintendo suggested the name Kirby, not only because they thought that name was interesting, but they also decided to name him after the lawyer John Kirby. John Kirby helped defend Nintendo when they were sued over Donkey Kong by Universal Studios, who thought that not only Donkey Kong was a ripoff of King Kong, but that they also owned the rights to King Kong. Fun fact for you, this wasn't the first time Universal tried to argue that they owned King Kong. 10 years prior, they tried to sue RKO Pictures for the exact same thing, with the end of the lawsuit coming out saying, hey, the rights for King Kong are so split up that, like, it's impossible to determine who owns King Kong at this point. Like, think about it. The last King Kong movie was made by Warner Brothers. That's not Universal. But no matter the case, the little guy was eventually renamed to Kirby, and the game was renamed to Kirby's Dream Land. And the game came out. It was received quite well, and it changed HAL Laboratory forever. Kinda. But before we talk about how it changed HAL, I think we need to talk about the actual game itself. The game begins with green greens, and this level is a pretty simple grassy thing, all things considered. You learn that you can suck up enemies with Kirby's mouth, and you can kind of fly and suck up air. This is before Kirby could replicate an enemy's power, so that's the only mechanics that Kirby has. This level introduces all the different enemies in the games, or at least all the different attacks that enemies can do, and it also introduces the type of levels that exist. You go from walking across the grass, enter different entrances, and climb up trees before eventually fighting fighting your very first boss, a massive tree. Every level in this game ends with a boss fight, with all of the boss fights just kind of being alternate versions of the same thing. But no matter, the first boss fight with the tree has apples fall from the tree for you to suck up and throw back at him. You collect a star at the end of the level, and you're thrown into the very next level of the game, Castle Lololo.
How? Guys, you do know there are other words that aren't just one letter followed by O, right? Right?
Castle Lololo is a level that mainly takes place inside of a castle. In this castle, you gain your first ability, a microphone that you can suck up, shoot back out, and it kills everything around it. And this castle also introduces you to ghosts and question mark blocks from Super Mario Bros. This level is a completely different type of level to the first one. This level ends with another boss fight, and I think this boss fight's kinda rubbish, to be honest. This fight has two different creatures that shoot blocks at you, and it's kinda hard to defeat them. Really wasn't a fan, but whatever. The next level is Float Islands, which this level is a water island type level. It's kinda similar to the first level, but also kinda not. This level has a lot more enemies that shoot things into the sky, making it hard to just fly over everything. And not only that, there's also coconuts that can fall off some trees and kill you. Near the end of the level, you can jump on a star and land in the clouds. And once in the clouds, you fight what I think is an airship with a new ability that allows you to shoot things out of your mouth. Out of all things, this boss fight kinda reminds me of the final boss from Super Mario Land. You just keep shooting the thing until it dies. It's quite a fun boss fight, all things considered, but it's over quite quickly due to how easy it is. The next level is Bubbly Clouds, because, you know, we're in the clouds now. This level has a lot more things in the sky for you to avoid, along with you eventually entering a castle in the clouds, like the song from Les Mis. In this level, you fight a cloud at the end. Quite fun. It shoots some enemies at you, you suck them up, and you shoot them back at the cloud. And after this, you enter the final level.
What? Final level? Yeah, there's only 5 levels in this game. And the final level is just the previous 4 boss fights with a final boss fight where you fight King Dedede. Thank God Hal figured out that there are other letters in the alphabet, because there's also E.
Yeah, so that's the entire game. There's really not that much going on in this game. But this game led to Hal basically moving into a whole new direction of the games that they developed. After developing Kirby's Dream Land, they made Vegas Stakes. But after then, the main thing Hal worked on was the Kirby games, and that's pretty much it. They made the Kirby games, Earthbound, Mother 3, the SimCity games like SimCity 2000 and SimCity 64, Super Smash Bros, and a few Pokemon spin-off games, and Face Raiders.
Thank God they made Face Raiders for the Nintendo 3DS family of systems.
Kirby's Dream Land completely changed Hal for the better. It led to them making much better games than they did before. Not that pinball and golf aren't good games, but come on, man.
I do think that Kirby's Dream Land is a bit short though. I think that it really shows what the Game Boy could do, but making a bigger and bigger Game Boy game I think would just be a lot better because there's something to do for more than 30 minutes. Maybe even you go to a land. 2. I'm talking about Super Mario Land 2 because tomorrow I'm going to be talking about Super Mario Land 2. Because you understand this, right? We've been doing this thing every day. I couldn't figure out how to end this discussion with you, so I thought I'd just explain to you the joke that I just made. Okay, bye. Go click on something else.